Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk on durable functions in Azure, and I will show you how you can create a durable function and then deploy it to cloud, and we will also invoke this durable function using Postman. I'll also briefly talk about the different patterns that are used for Azure durable functions. So that's it. So that's the agenda of this video. Before starting, I will like to request you to like this video and subscribe to my channel, so you can see the bell icon below, and you can click on that so that you will be notified when I come up with new videos. And I'll also provide all the links in the description, so don't forget to check out the description for the links. So let's get started. So as you can see, I have this Visual Studio 2019 open in front of me. So using this, we are going to create this new Azure durable function. So what exactly is a Azure durable function? So if you know Azure functions, so Azure function is basically a serverless way of running the code. Okay, so which means you don't worry about the server or the underlying networking or the infrastructure as a whole, right? So Azure takes care of all those things for you. So you have a piece of code, you just deploy that piece of code to Azure, and that will then run there, okay, on Azure server. So Azure will decide on which server to run and where in the world, in which data center it will run. So it will all be decided by Azure. To do that, you can write the code in Visual Studio, and then you can deploy it, and a certain small piece of functionality can also be written directly on Azure portal. Now the thing is that now the Azure functions has some limitations. Now these are called as stateless functions, which means they don't maintain a state. Okay, so as soon as the instance is created and the work is done, the instance will be destroyed. So if you want to store some value locally in a local variable, it cannot be done reliably, okay, because we don't manage the state, Azure does it. So we don't know at what point it will recycle it, or it will restart the VM on which the function is running. So those kind of things are not reliable. So which means, so you cannot create a workflow. So a workflow will consist of multiple tasks, and the starting point of the workflow will usually be another function, and that function has to then wait for other tasks to complete. So those kind of things cannot be done because using the Azure functions, okay, because it is stateless. But you can do the same things using Azure durable function, because that is where durable functions are very useful, because they are stateful functions. They maintain a state. Okay, so you can maintain a state from the start till the very end, and so the durable function can manage all the different tasks which are happening, and it can then communicate with other parties, and then it will close the overall workflow. So that is why Azure has created this durable function. You can do the same thing using Azure functions also, but it is very difficult because you have to then take care of all the underlying things. Basically, you have to use a storage, and then you have to manage your state using the storage. So whenever you want to store something or store the information of the current status, so you have to use a storage and store it there, and accordingly then you have to move to the next task or the next process and do it step by step. Okay, so but it becomes very complex. That is why Azure durable function is a more easy way of doing it. Okay, so let's now go briefly to Microsoft Azure site here. So you can see there are different application patterns in this which Microsoft has recommended. So you can use this pattern. You can also use the sample code if you are creating a durable function. So this is the first pattern, is a function chaining pattern, where you can see function 1 calls function 2, then function 3 calls function 4, like this, a chain of event happens. Okay, so this is one kind of pattern which is very useful. So this is basically this is how a peculiar workflow occurs, right? The flow of information happens within a workflow. So now the next pattern is fan out and fan in. In this pattern, basically the function, the one function will call instances of other function. So there will be multiple instances of the function, which is here f2, and then finally all these the results will be summed up or collated, and then it will be then sent back. So that will be done by f3, this function here. So that is fan out. So you are basically fanning out by creating multiple instances, and then you are again zeroing in, which means you are again summing up all the result set and returning it back. So you are fanning in. Now the next pattern is Async HTTP APIs. So usually in this kind of pattern, so you start a process. So usually these processes are long running actions or long running processes. So the function starts the process is here, and then once the process is started, so the result of that process is maintained at an endpoint. So which means if someone wants to know the result of the process that is happening, so they can call this endpoint and it will return whether it is running or whether the task is completed or it is yet to start. Those kind of status can be returned back. Okay, so that is where you can see this. So this is the endpoint, and this function it's shown to call this endpoint and get the status. Okay, so this will be like a API endpoint which needs to be called. So this is asynchronous HTTP APIs pattern. And now let's move on to monitor pattern. In the monitor pattern, actually the reverse happens, where the Azure function wait for another component to monitor the events that is happening. So basically the statuses of a long running process you can monitor using this pattern, and the Azure function then monitors another API endpoint, and then based on the statuses it then takes action. Okay, so that is the monitor pattern. Then there is a human interaction pattern. So in this pattern usually a human being is involved. So for example, like a approval process where you want to let's say there is a manager who wants to approve a leave. The approval goes to the manager, and the function will wait for that event to happen. If that doesn't happen within a specified duration, so that is why a clock is shown here. So you can use a timer so within the code so that you can wait for that approval to happen. If it doesn't happen, then you can call one more process or a function which will then escalate or take another action to get it resolved. Okay, so and if the approval happens, then it will go to process approval, which is again then what is the next step? Leave is approved, so perhaps send an email, right? So this action then will send an email. So that is how that is where these Azure durable functions are used for this kind of workflows as well. Okay, human interaction. And then there is a aggregator pattern where multiple requests can come to a Azure function from multiple sources simultaneously, and the work of the function will be to collate all these things and convey or take further actions or talk to some external client and pass the information. So that is where aggregator pattern can be used. So this is briefly kind of an intro about all these 6 patterns. So what we will do right now is go to the code and create a Azure function, and we will then run it and also will deploy it. All right, so let's now start Visual Studio 2019 and create a new Azure durable function. So I have already started it here. This is Visual Studio 2019. So what I will do is I'll click on create a new project, and then we will create the project. So search for function here, and you will see this option, Azure Functions. Select next, and let's give the project a name. So let me say durable demo function. Okay, and then click on create. So it will create create a new Azure Functions application. So you will be presented with this option here, and then you select durable functions orchestration. So that will create our durable function. Okay, and you have to then select storage emulator here. All right. And you should also start the emulator, the storage emulator, if you want to run it locally. So which I have done. So I have started my Azure storage emulator. So I'll provide the links in the description, so you can go there and download this storage emulator, and you can run it then. So let's click on create. So you can see here there are different type of functions which has been added by default. And then also there is a static class called as function1, and this is the name of our project, durable demo function, which we have provided, and these things are created by default, rest of the things. When it comes to durable functions, there are 4 type of functions. Okay, so one is called as orchestrator function, another is called as activity function, and then another is called as client function, and then there is a entity function as well. Okay, so there are 4 type of functions which we can create. So by default here you can see there is an orchestrator function, which is this one, run orchestrator. So this is the entry point for the orchestrator function. So this is the function which is our activity functions, which does something. Usually activity functions are called from a orchestrator function. Okay, so this is the orchestrator function which is at a high level. Then orchestrator functions is responsible for the overall workflow, and then it can call other functions. Okay, mainly the activity functions will be called by the orchestrator function, and then it will collect all the things and then return the result back. Okay, so usually that is the kind of a thing or pattern that happens. But the entry point, when someone calls this function, okay, so the entry point is usually a HTTP trigger function, which is basically something which you have, if you know the Azure functions, then you may have heard that there is HTTP trigger functions, so which basically provides a endpoint, and when you trigger that or call that endpoint, so this method will be invoked. Okay, and this method will then set few things. Like you can see, like start new async and create check status response. So this kind of things will be set inside it, and then it will so this method will close. Okay, then the control will be handed over to the orchestrator. Okay, so that is what it does here. Like you can see, so here there is a start new async. So basically this is what, so it is telling that, okay, you start a orchestrator function. Okay, so this is the orchestrator function, function1, which will be started here. Okay, so you can see function1 here. And then similarly, it will say that, okay, create check status response. So which means after the orchestrator function starts, okay, and it does some work. Okay, so the workflow has started now once this is executed. So when the workflow starts and the different tasks will happen, so there could be multiple tasks as part of that workflow. When that is executed, so in order for a client to understand what is the status of the work, so they will be presented with a URL which they can query that URL, and then they will know, or they will get a response which will tell them whether the workflow is running or is complete or is yet to start. So those kind of information will be provided through that URL. Okay, so that is why this is what we are doing here, starter.create check status response. Okay, so you can see the details also here. It is mentioned what it will do. So what now we will do is, so this is the default code. What we will do, some changes to this code. Okay, so that, and then we will run it and see what exactly happens as part of that change. So this is one of our Azure function here, right? So which is the activity function. I will create 2 more activity functions. So I'll copy this code and paste it below, and let me call it function underscore. So let's say this is a it will say, okay, this is it. So what I will do is I'll create three functions. One I will call as an ATM function. Okay, ATM means it is like where you go to ATM and get some money, right? So this the work of this function is to return some money to you, and then we will say call another function which will be called as a buy commodity or buy something. Okay, that kind of function. And then the third function which will basically deposit money in the bank. So you are withdrawing money, and then you are buying something, and then you are depositing something. Okay, so there will be three different tasks, so which will represent the real world tasks. So three different tasks here in the shape of activity functions. And this will be, so we will what we will do is it will just return some string. Okay, as part of this it will just return some string. Finally the strings will be collated here, and then it will be the results will be displayed. Okay, so that is so what I am doing is so what I will do now is I will rename these things so that it represents whatever we just talked about. Get cash. Okay, and then buy grocery. So the name of the actual method can be, I think, let's say get items, and then here we'll say deposit money. Okay, so this is our, let's now do a bit of, we can leave these things log information, we can leave this as it is. So basically it will just log the information, and name is something which we will pass from here. And what we will do is now we will replace these things with the name of the functions that we have created. Okay, so these attributes are important, so that attribute only you have to use here. So I'm just copying and pasting it here. So deposit money, and I pasted it. Now here, so get cash. So I have to tell the ATM function how much cash I need. So I will say, let's say 200. Okay, so it could be $200 or 200 rupees or whatever. So 200, and then here I will say buy something. So which means, let's say buy potato, and then deposit deposit money. So let's say deposit money, the bank name, let's use Citibank. So we will deposit $200. We'll get $200 from the ATM function. Buy some grocery, so which is like, let's say buy potato, and then rest of the money we will deposit in a Citibank branch. Okay, so these are three tasks, and I will not modify any of this. So basically what will happen is, in the result we should expect hello 200, hello potato, and hello Citibank. So what or we can modify it as well, if because hello doesn't sound kind of good, perhaps we can modify these messages and return, instead of hello we can return cash 200, yeah, withdrawn. Okay, here we'll say bought, so bought potato, and here we say deposited money in Citibank. Okay, so now our functions are ready. So what we'll do is we will just so let me just check. Yeah, so output, everything looks fine. So we'll build it now. So build has started, and after that we will run this. So build succeeded. Now I'm running it. So when we are running it, so what will happen is, so it will present us a URL. Okay, so that URL we should copy that URL. So you can see this HTTP localhost 7071. Okay, and so when you deploy to Azure, so this particular the base URL should be replaced with the Azure URL. Okay, so in Azure function app, so you will also get a base URL. If you go to the function app page, you will get a base URL. You should copy that and use that, then append this with rest of these things, and then that is where your entry point method which I showed you, so that will be called. So right now I'm copying it so that I can execute it using Postman, but basically this will tell you, so when you invoke this, so the method here, function1 HTTP start, this method will be called, okay, HTTP start, right? So this is the HTTP trigger method, a trigger function, right? So it will be triggered through, it can be triggered through a HTTP URL. So now we are triggering this. Okay, we will trigger this using Postman, and when we trigger this, so then it will in return, so this return, you see this return here, right? So this return statement will return us a set of things, and out of those set of things, we will, one of the things will be a URL. Okay, a status URL, get so check status URL. So that URL we will use again using Postman to get the actual status as well as the result. Okay, so this result and the status of this process, so all these things we will get using the second URL. So first URL to trigger this method. So that is what we are going to do now, step 1. So go to Postman and select get. Now paste that URL here and click on send. So now Postman is running, and now it has returned us a result, right? So you can see there are different kind of things. So different kind of things has been returned to you. So we are interested in this status query get URI. Okay, so copy this and again go to another tab and paste this, remove this colon. So paste this. Now when I execute this, so this will get me the result of the orchestration of the workflow that is running. Okay, whether it's running or completed or whatever. So that status I will get back as well as the result set. So click send, and now you can see that the runtime status is completed and the output is whatever we have provided there, right? It is as per our expectation. So cache 200 withdrawn. Bought potato, well, the spelling here is incorrect, but yeah, so this is basically withdrawn. Bought potato, deposited money in Citibank. Okay, so that is what we have got from the orchestrator and the activity functions. Okay, so it has collected everything, it has returned back the result. So that's a simple thing, but this everything is happening in our local. Okay, now what we will do, we will deploy it to Azure, and then again we'll see how whether we are getting the same response or not. So let's go back to Azure. So you can see here the resources group, there is nothing, it is blank right now. This is my portal, this is my login. So you can create you can sign up for free, you can get credit, and you can do things, you can test out things using Azure. If you already have a subscription, well and good. So what you need to do is go here, let me stop this and publish. Okay, so when you publish, it will ask what kind of publishing we want to do. We will say, okay, we want to go to Azure Cloud, and here we want to do a Windows based Azure Function App deployment, and then what we can do is we can ask it to create things for us. So by default it will present us this kind of things. You can leave it as it is, or if you want you can modify the name. For the demo purpose I will just leave it as it is, and click on create. So it will validate everything, and now it will take some time to create this app service and rest of the things. Yeah. Okay, so the next screen is this one where you can see the function app name here. resource group has also been created. So what we will do is we will click on finish, but it is still not published to Azure. So yeah, so now it is ready to publish. Okay, this will be our base URL. So we can copy this. So this will be our base URL and then click on publish. All right, so now all our functions has been published to Azure. Okay, so what we can do is, so go to Azure. You can see here that a new resource group has been created, the default one. Go inside and see this function app here. Okay, so click on that function app and then click on functions, and you can see all our functions. These are the functions which we created, right? So ATM, buy grocery, all this. So this is our orchestration function, and this is our HTTP trigger function, okay, which is basically our starting point. So all this has been created. Now what we should do is we will use the base URL. So you can find the base URL here. So you copy this URL and then we use again go back to Postman and then run it and see if we are getting the results. So before that, I will again hit this send to show you that that the local method is no longer available. So you should go to get some kind of error. So you can see that we have got an error here. So now I will replace this first part with this the base URL that I have received from the function app. So this is the base URL and then API and then our starting function. Okay, so now click on send. See, now we have got the result back. So it means the function is now running. Okay, it is running successfully, it's deployed successfully and is running. So let's copy this query get URI part and go back here and replace this with the new URL. Okay, and then see the result. Yeah, so now we have got the result back. So the result is correct. The status here is complete. So and we have got the output as expected. Okay, so this is what is all about Azure durable function. You can play around with it and you can create more complex cases and then work it out and create your own workflows. So it is very useful, as you can see. If you like this video and you want me to come up with some more such videos, then please hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel. Thanks a lot for watching.